Dr. Slaps and Humiliates nurse, unaware of who the patient really is. But first, remember to subscribe to our channel so we can keep sharing incredible stories. The story opens in the sterile, polished hallways of Mercy General Hospital, a private institution located in downtown Chicago. And known for its elite clientele and stringent policies, Mercy General prides itself on efficiency and exclusivity. In one of the patient rooms, Dr. William Carter, renowned for his expertise but infamous for his arrogance, stands over a nurse, his expression etched with contempt. His voice is harsh, slicing through the tense silence. "You made a serious mistake, Nurse Thompson," he says, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Do you understand the consequences of endangering a patient's life?" His tone is unforgiving, and his words cut deep. Sarah Thompson, a young but experienced nurse, stands her ground, though her face flushes with embarrassment. She glances at the elderly patient lying in bed, a man in his late 60s, with graying hair and a calm, almost amused expression. Sarah had followed the hospital's protocols exactly, but Dr. Carter isn't interested in hearing her defense. "Dr. Carter, I was only trying to follow the standard procedure," Sarah explains, her voice steady but nervous. "The patient's vitals indicated that immediate intervention was necessary, and I administered the preliminary treatment as per the guidelines." Dr. Carter narrows his eyes. "Don't try to justify yourself, Thompson. You're here to assist, not to make medical decisions. If you can't follow instructions, maybe this isn't the right place for you." His voice carries a thinly veiled threat, implying that Sarah's job might be on the line if she dares to step out of line again. Sarah lowers her gaze, swallowing her pride and resentment. She knows arguing with Dr. Carter in front of others would only escalate the situation, possibly costing her the job she worked so hard to secure. She simply nods, a quiet, "Yes, doctor," escaping her lips as she holds back her frustration. Throughout the exchange, the patient watches intently, his eyes shifting between Dr. Carter and Sarah with a perceptive glint. Despite his apparent anonymity, there's something about him that exudes an air of quiet authority. When Dr. Carter finally leaves, the tension in the room dissipates slightly, and Sarah sighs in relief. "Thank you, nurse," the patient says softly, his voice warm. "You did what you thought was best. I appreciate it." Caught off guard, Sarah looks at him with a faint smile, appreciating his support. "Thank you, sir," she replies, her voice tinged with gratitude. But a shadow of concern clouds her expression as she begins to worry about what Dr. Carter might do next. As she adjusts the patient's IV line, she can't shake the feeling that something isn't quite ordinary about him. There's a subtle, inexplicable authority in his manner, a sense that he's not just another patient. For now, though, she sets aside her curiosity, focusing on her duty. The patient continues to observe her in silence, seemingly deep in thought. Later that evening, as Sarah continues her rounds, she can't shake the anxiety from her earlier encounter with Dr. Carter. Though she's always been dedicated and meticulous, she's learned the hard way that Dr. Carter's approval is hard to win and even harder to keep. The other nurses often whisper about his ruthless attitude, and Sarah knows that he's pressured staff members out of the hospital for much less than what he accused her of today. Returning to her patient's room, she finds him awake, his eyes studying her with a calm, almost discerning gaze. His breathing is steady now, but the monitors show that his heart rate remains slightly erratic. She gently checks his IV, and as she does, the man clears his throat, catching her attention. "You look worried, Nurse Thompson," he says, his voice gentle yet firm. Sarah hesitates, unsure how much she should reveal to a patient. "Just busy." "It's been a long day," she replies, offering a polite smile. The man doesn't seem convinced. He watches her in silence for a moment, then speaks again. Forgive me for being direct, but it seems like there's a tension in this hospital. I noticed the doctor's reaction earlier. He raises an eyebrow. Does he always treat his staff that way? Sarah pauses, unsure of how to respond. She's hesitant to criticize Dr. Carter, but something about this patient's calm demeanor invites honesty. He can be demanding, she admits carefully. He holds high standards for everyone here. The man nods thoughtfully, as if he's filing away this information. I imagine that makes your job difficult, he says almost to himself, especially when you're trying to do what's best for your patients. She nods, surprised by his perceptiveness. It can be, yes, but this is a good hospital, and I want to help people. That's why I'm here. He studies her for a moment longer, then leans back against his pillows. You have a rare dedication, Sarah. I respect that. It's not easy to find people who truly care about their work. Sarah can't help but feel a surge of gratitude at his words. Thank you, sir. That means a lot, she replies, her voice warm. As she continues her work, the patient begins asking more questions, this time about the hospital itself, its size, its specialties, the types of patients they typically treat. Sarah answers as best she can, though she finds his curiosity unusual for someone in his position. Most patients are more concerned with their own recovery, not with the inner workings of the hospital. Before she leaves, he looks at her with a knowing smile. You're doing good work here, Sarah. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. Her heart lifts at his encouragement, though she can't quite shake the feeling that there's something different about this man, something she can't put her finger on. She nods politely, thanks him again, and leaves the room, her mind buzzing with questions. As she heads down the hallway, she notices Dr. Carter nearby, talking with a few senior staff members. He throws her a sharp glance, and she quickly looks away, hoping to avoid his notice. But a new sense of resolve fills her. The patient's words echo in her mind, reminding her why she chose this path. She knows her job won't get easier with Dr. Carter watching her, but something tells her that this patient isn't just another case, and though she doesn't know it yet, he's about to change everything. Over the next few days, Sarah spends more time with the patient, whose name she now knows as John Harper. Each day, he seems a little stronger, though his condition still requires close monitoring. There's something about him that continues to intrigue her. He speaks with a quiet confidence, and his understanding of medical procedures is surprisingly advanced for a patient. Sometimes he casually mentions aspects of hospital administration that only someone with an inside perspective would know. One afternoon, as Sarah is adjusting his oxygen mask, John asks, "Tell me, Sarah, do you enjoy working here at Mercy General?" Sarah hesitates, not sure how to respond. She's learned to be cautious when talking about her work environment, especially with Dr. Carter's tendency to overhear and twist people's words. "I do, yes," she says carefully. "It's a great place to help people, and we have excellent facilities." John nods, a slight smile on his face. "And the staff? How do they treat you?" She's caught off guard by his question, and for a moment she considers brushing it off. But something about John's warm, understanding gaze encourages her to be honest. "Most of them are wonderful," she replies, "but it can be challenging. Some of the senior staff have very high expectations." John's expression turns thoughtful. "Dr. Carter, for example?" Her eyes widen slightly. She hadn't expected him to bring up Dr. Carter directly. "Yes, he's demanding. He wants everything done to the letter." John watches her intently. "And does he appreciate your work, Sarah?" A twinge of frustration rises in her, but she keeps her tone polite. "I do my best to follow the protocols and give every patient the care they deserve. That's what matters to me." John nods approvingly. "It's clear you have a strong sense of duty. That's rare. And if I may say, it's even rarer to find someone willing to speak honestly about their workplace." Just then, the door swings open, and Dr. Carter strides in. his usual frown deepening as he catches sight of Sarah talking with John. He doesn't acknowledge her, focusing instead on the patient. "Mr. Harper, how are we feeling today?" he asks, his tone brisk and impersonal. "Better, thanks to Nurse Thompson," John replies, meeting Dr. Carter's gaze with a steady look. Dr. Carter stiffens slightly. "Yes, well, we're doing everything we can to ensure a quick recovery. Nurse Thompson's assistance is adequate." The word drips with condescension, and Sarah feels her cheeks flush with anger. Before she can respond, Dr. Carter continues, "Mr. Harper, I understand you don't have health insurance listed on your file. Do you have any means to cover the expenses of this extended stay?" Sarah's stomach tightens. She's heard Dr. Carter use this line before to pressure patients, especially those who don't appear wealthy, to consider transferring out. But John remains unfazed. "Is that so?" John says, raising an eyebrow, his tone calm but unmistakably sharp. "I'm sure the hospital will find a way to accommodate me." Dr. Carter's eyes narrow, as though John's confidence irritates him. He forces a thin smile. "Let's hope so. In the meantime, we must allocate resources to those who need them most." He gives Sarah a pointed look before leaving the room, a clear signal that he expects her to hurry along. As the door closes, John lets out a quiet laugh. "Quite a character, that Dr. Carter," he remarks, shaking his head. "Tell me, Sarah, has he always been so dedicated to resource allocation?" Sarah bites her lip to keep from laughing. "He's very focused on efficiency," she says, her tone diplomatic. John chuckles. "Well, let's see how long that focus lasts." Sarah leaves his room a few minutes later, her mind racing. There's something about John Harper that feels distinctly out of place. His confidence, his knowledge of medical protocols, even his composure in the face of Dr. Carter's condescension, it all suggests that he's more than just another patient. She can't shake the feeling that there's more to his presence at Mercy General than meets the eye. And she's right. Soon, John Harper's true identity will come to light, and Mercy General will never be the same. A few days later, John Harper's recovery is nearly complete, and whispers begin to circulate around the hospital about the mysterious patient in room 318. Several staff members have noticed his keen observations, and some even report feeling as if they're being evaluated whenever he asks a question. But no one knows the full story, least of all Dr. Carter, who has continued his dismissive attitude toward both John and Sarah. On a quiet morning, John asks Sarah to help him prepare for a meeting. Confused but willing to assist, Sarah brings him his belongings and straightens his bed as he thanks her with a warm, grateful smile. "Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to be meeting with the hospital administration shortly," he says, an enigmatic gleam in his eyes. "Meeting with administration?" Sarah echoes, her confusion growing. Are you leaving?" "Not quite," he replies, his tone cryptic. "I'll explain everything soon." Minutes later, Sarah is called to the staff lounge, where a buzz of speculation fills the air. A few nurses and doctors have gathered near the administration wing, whispering about an important guest. Dr. Carter appears, visibly annoyed by the commotion. "What's going on here?" he demands. "Don't you all have work to do?" Just then, the door to the conference room opens and a figure steps out, flanked by members of the hospital board. Sarah's eyes widen as she recognizes John, now dressed in a sharp, tailored suit, exuding an air of authority that seems worlds away from his patient persona. He strides forward, shaking hands with each board member as they address him respectfully. "Mr. Harper," one board member says, "we appreciate your visit and your ongoing support. We're honored to have you here." Dr. Carter's face pales. He blinks, unable to process what he's seeing. "Mr. Harper," he stammers, his voice a mix of disbelief and confusion. You're... John turns to him, his gaze cool and unwavering. "Dr. Carter, I see you're as observant as ever," he says, his voice calm but carrying a weight of authority. Yes, I am John Harper. As of 2 years ago, I became the primary stakeholder in this hospital network. You might say I own Mercy General. A stunned silence falls over the room. Sarah, standing among the other staff members, feels a mixture of relief and vindication as she watches Dr. Carter struggle to regain his composure. John continues, his tone measured and controlled. I wanted to experience firsthand how patients are treated here. Unfortunately, what I observed was far from what I expected in a facility that prides itself on excellence. His gaze shifts briefly to Sarah, acknowledging her kindness and dedication with a subtle nod. Dr. Carter clears his throat, desperately trying to salvage the situation. Mr. Harper, if I had known— But you didn't know, Doctor. Carter, John interrupts, his voice suddenly cold. And that's the problem. The lack of compassion, the focus on profit over patient care, the way you speak to staff. He lets his words hang in the air, each one a condemnation. This hospital was meant to be a place of healing, not a place where people in need are treated like second-class citizens. The gathered staff members exchange looks, a ripple of hope and apprehension passing through them. John addresses the group as a whole now, his voice carrying a sense of purpose. I've made a decision, he says. As of today, there will be changes in this hospital. We'll be re-evaluating our policies, starting with a commitment to treating every patient regardless of their financial background with respect and care. We will also be looking closely at how staff are treated, and those who fail to uphold these values will be held accountable. Dr. Carter's expression shifts from shock to barely concealed anger. Mr. Harper, I assure you, I was only doing what I believed was best for the hospital. John meets his gaze with a piercing look. What's best for the hospital, Dr. Carter, is for you to find employment elsewhere. The words are final, and Dr. Carter stares at John in disbelief, his face drained of color. He opens his mouth to protest, but no words come out. Finally, he turns and walks away, his posture stiff with humiliation. After a moment, John turns back to the staff. His gaze finds Sarah, and he offers her a slight smile. Sarah, thank you for the care you provided during my stay. I'll be speaking with the board about promoting you to a supervisory role in nursing. We need more people like you in leadership positions. Sarah's eyes widen, and a surge of gratitude wells up within her. She nods, fighting back tears of relief and pride. With that, John Harper exits the room, leaving a hospital forever changed in his wake. His actions have sent a clear message. Mercy General will no longer be a place ruled by arrogance and disregard, but by compassion and integrity. A few weeks later, Mercy General feels like a new hospital. Under John Harper's leadership, sweeping changes have been made, and the staff can feel the difference. New training programs emphasize compassionate care, and a revised patient policy ensures that every person who walks through the doors is treated with dignity, regardless of their financial status. The atmosphere has shifted from one of silent tension to one of respect and collaboration. Sarah Thompson has officially been promoted to nursing supervisor, and though the role comes with more responsibility, she feels a renewed sense of purpose. She oversees her team with empathy and attentiveness, encouraging other nurses to speak up when they see something wrong. The staff respects her, and many nurses feel that for the first time, their work is truly valued. One afternoon, as Sarah is completing her rounds, she receives an unexpected call to the hospital's executive office. She arrives to find John Harper waiting for her, a warm smile on his face. He gestures for her to sit, and she does, slightly nervous but grateful for this unexpected meeting. I wanted to personally thank you, Sarah, John begins, his tone sincere. Not just for the care you provided me, but for the example you set every day. Your dedication was exactly what this hospital needed to rediscover. Sarah feels her cheeks flush with pride. "Thank you, Mr. Harper. I'm honored to be a part of this change." John nods, looking thoughtful. "You know, when I first came here undercover, I wasn't sure what I would find. Mercy General had lost its way. But then I met people like you, people who reminded me why I invested in healthcare in the first place." He reaches into his briefcase and pulls out a set of blueprints, laying them on the table in front of her. Sarah leans in, her eyes widening as she reads the plans. "I'd like to build a new wing of the hospital," John says, his eyes bright with excitement. "A department dedicated to serving underprivileged communities, offering free or low-cost care to those who need it most. And I'd like you to help me lead this project, to ensure it's a place that reflects the compassion and humanity you showed me." Sarah is speechless for a moment, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his offer. "Mr. Harper, I don't know what to say. This is incredible." John smiles, his gaze steady. "Say you'll help me make it a reality." She nods, her heart pounding with excitement. "Yes, absolutely. I'd be honored." As they discuss the details, Sarah can hardly believe how much her life has changed. In the span of a few weeks, she has gone from feeling powerless under Dr. Carter's rule to helping lead a project that will transform countless lives. She feels the weight of this responsibility, but it's a weight she's proud to carry. Months pass, and the new wing begins to take shape. Named the Harper Center for Community Health, it stands as a testament to the power of kindness and integrity in healthcare. On the day of the grand opening, John Harper stands at the podium, delivering a heartfelt speech to a crowd of hospital staff, community leaders, and grateful patients. "Today, we celebrate more than just a new facility," John says, his voice resonating with pride. "We celebrate a commitment to caring for others, no matter their background. Mercy General will be a place of healing, compassion, and dignity for everyone who walks through its doors." As the crowd applauds, Sarah stands nearby, tears in her eyes as she thinks back to that first encounter with John, the quiet, unassuming patient who turned out to be a visionary leader. His trust and support have allowed her to grow, and together they have transformed Mercy General into a beacon of hope. From that day forward, Mercy General Hospital becomes known not only as a top-tier medical facility, but also as a place that values compassion and humanity. For Sarah, this journey has reaffirmed her faith in her profession and reminded her of the true impact that kindness can have. She knows that no matter what challenges lie ahead, she and her team will always stand for what's right. And in the end, all it took was one act of compassion to set everything in motion.